See Lindelof videos, sum of two cubes. So let's look at this pattern that we have here. We have this pattern a cubed plus b cubed, and say can be simplified or more easily factored or more completely factored as the quantity a plus b times the quantity a squared minus ab plus b squared. You got to write that down and you have to memorize that. So that's a place to start. The second thing you have to be able to do is to rewrite, and I tell a lot of calculus students that one of the greatest things you can learn in math is to rewrite. So I'm saying, how could you rewrite this in the form of that? One thing that I hear a lot of people say is that they're not sure what's being cubed here. Are the 8 and the x being cubed? Is it just the 8? Is it just the x? How do I know? Well, let me say this. If you don't see any parentheses, then you can assume that the only thing being cubed is this. That this is 8 times x cubed. However, if your professor wrote to you 8x, the quantity, and he or she used parentheses and then cubed it, now you have this whole thing cubed, and that's a different bit of math, isn't it? So something to think about, that this is not the same as this. So if you're asking me, how do you know that? If you don't see parentheses, then you must assume that the only thing being raised to the power is the exact thing that the exponent is touching. All right? So having said that, how else can I visualize this to put it into this form? So this is the form that I want. So I look at 8, I'm like, you know what? 8 is 2 cubed. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, is cubed. X cubed, not being funny, but x cubed is x cubed. And I believe that 27 is 3 cubed. So I have 3 times 3 is 9, times 3 is 27. That worked. 8 to the third power, 2 to the third power is 8, and x to the third power is that. Also know this, and I'm sure you've learned this, that a to the b to the mth power is equal to a to the mth times b to the mth. All I'm saying is do this backwards. So we're here and do it backwards. So I'm saying that I have 2x to the third power. Now I can see clearly that not just the x is being cubed, but also the 2. I'm going to check and see if it works out. 2 cubed is 8. X cubed is x cubed. 8 times x cubed gives me that back. That worked. Plus 3 cubed. And if you're wondering why I'm doing this, I'm trying to isolate the a and b values. So this is the way I'm looking at this now. I'm like, okay, I have this. I have this thing cubed. And this says this thing cubed, doesn't it? And then it says here, I want this thing cubed. Well, it is this thing cubed. So now I can tell with some certainty that I have a value of a. A is 2x, isn't it? And b is equal to 3. From here, it gets super, super easy, and it's just FITBA. Fill in the blanks. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to fill in the blanks up here. These are the blanks I'm filling in now. And obviously, we established that a is 2x, b is 3, a is 2x. Remember, so I have this a squared, right? I have a squared. But it's 2x is my a value, so I have to square the whole thing, right? Minus a times b. Well, a times b is 2x times 3, which is 6x, isn't it? And then it says to square b, and b is 3, so 3 squared is 9. Is that all right with how I got that? This is the one I want to make sure nobody messes up, because if you just put 2x squared, you failed to square this other part, didn't you? So it's not. It's the whole thing squared. And we know that 2x times 2x is equal to 4x squared, isn't it? Or 2 squared is 4 and x squared is x, so 4x squared. I hope like heck this is making sense, because this is really important stuff. All right? So there's our answer. You know what? Let's try just one more. Let's try one more that I have here. This one is just a little bit trickier because it asks you to do a little bit of extra algebra to be able to visualize this. So we're asked on the SAT to factor this. So they say factor 250x to the fourth plus 128x. I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with that? First thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to look at the numbers. The numbers that I have are 250, aren't they? 250 and 128. And all I'm going to do with that is I'm going to ask myself, what's the greatest common factor of them? And it's 2. So I'm going to take out a 2. And then I have x to the fourth here, x to the first here. The greatest common factor there is x, isn't it? And isn't it true that 2x times 125x cubed, so 2 times 125 is 250, x times x cubed is x to the fourth, so I'm getting everything back, plus 64. And isn't it true that 2x times 64 is 128x? So there's that. Wow. So if that wasn't difficult enough, now I'm hoping that you can recognize this is sum of squares. And I'm hoping that you can rewrite this in the same way a calc student would as 5 cubed is 125 and x cubed is x cubed. And believe it or not, 4 cubed is equal to 64. From there, I'm going to just clean this up and say I have 5x cubed, because we know that exponents are distributable over multiplication, plus 4 cubed, right? A is equal to, right? B is equal to, right? And now fill in the blanks. When you fill in the blanks, remember, don't lose this 2x, because we need that 2x. 2x times 5x plus 4 times 5x squared is 25x squared, right? When I say 5x squared, I mean 5x squared. 5 squared is 25. X squared is x squared, right? Minus 20x plus 16 is our answer. Not easy. Just remember the steps, please. Remember the steps. Step 1, look for this pattern. Step 2, memorize this expansion formula, right? If you memorize this, you got the thing half beaten. From there, remember that when you get to calculus, this is a big deal in calculus to be able to rewrite things, and you're just going to rewrite this in this way. All right? Hope this was really helpful. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know. And if you haven't already subscribed, please do. Thanks.